Hey, welcome to Combat Vet Vision. This is a platform for our veterans, combat veterans, sponsors, supporters, and volunteers to really educate the public, help our veterans be able to get their message across, tell their stories, and really be able to just kind of talk about situations, things that are going on with our veterans, things that are important to our veterans, and a lot of them have some really incredible stories. A lot of the organizations that we're part of. I'm part of the Warrior Built Foundation, the PTSD Foundation of America, Recon Chief Incorporated, the Veterans Transition Resource Center, um, and so many other nonprofit organizations that exist out there that are doing some incredible things. I've spent some time doing a lot of really incredible things with them, and ultimately reaching out to our veterans every day or throughout the weeks and days, and just really reaching out and spend a lot of time talking to them, running 3 warrior groups throughout the week, doing a bunch of things that really make their lives a better place, hopefully, including mine. This benefits me. It benefits a lot of things. I usually have my co-host JB Brown on deck as well, Coast Guard vet that tells his stories and really tries to help the community out in the service in a lot of different directions. And ultimately, helping out our veterans in the Veterans Transition Resource Center here in Las Vegas area and all those different areas. I'm hoping to have my guest on deck today, JB Stark, another JB. So we got a bunch of JBs going around. JB Stark, both Marine and Army National Guard, did a whole bunch of service, and he still continues to serve his country with service to our veterans community in a lot of different cool directions. So I'm hoping he pops on here in a little bit. And but got some really cool projects coming up with Warrior Built. The PTSD Foundation of America has some things going on all the time, helping the veterans in their communities. Veterans Transition Resource Center, all the resources that they're pulling in, they're trying to collaborate with and make an important support for our veterans. They're doing incredible things. We got equine therapy events coming up and some other incredible events through Recon Chief Incorporated. And so if JB doesn't make it, one of the things that I wanted to talk about on today's deal is, I'm just going to throw it out there real quick, and we'll go into it for a little while till JB pops on, is freedom and the taste of it, and coming back from combat and being able to really kind of dive into that a little bit, and why it tastes so different now than it did when I was growing up as a kid, and the understanding of it. And I will say, when I, as a kid coming up and just kind of looking at how you're born into this freedom bubble to the point where, school doesn't seem like it matters to kids today. And it didn't matter really that much when we were growing up as kids either, because it seemed like our parents had everything kind of locked on. The freedoms that we have, there's so many opportunities that are created, so many things that America has to offer, and America has in its freedom bubble of things, that it doesn't seem like you have to try too hard. It doesn't seem like you have to work too crazy. But if you do work hard, if you do work crazy, good things happen to you, right? You're told that these things will happen. And you look at the freedom of entrepreneurship. You look at the freedom of pushing the envelope in capitalism, and running down that street and earning that money, and what it's going to do for you. It's not necessarily greed. A lot of people want to push that narrative. It's all about greed. It's all about greed. It's about doing more and not having to work so hard for what you got. There's plenty of spoiled people out there, maybe, that got it handed to them, and they're just pondering it, right? But that's the freedom we got. So you're so free that you can do that. But as I was growing up, I was looking at this freedom, and I was like, hey, this is kind of what it looks like. This is kind of what it tastes like. And I didn't really taste it as well, right? Because I didn't really fully understand it till I took that oath, and I joined the Navy, and I said, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to stand this wall, and I'm going to guard the wall, because as what we were doing at the time, we were guarding the wall. Vietnam had closed long before I was even thinking about joining the Navy, because I was born in 72 and joined in 91. And, we really weren't in too many conflicts in between there that involved any kind of mass deployments, that created that. So when we finally ended up going to Iraq and Afghanistan, when that war kicked off, we finally had to step off that wall. The majority of us that decided to serve and continued to serve, we had to step off that wall and step outside of the bounds of the freedom bubble, meaning you don't get to go home at night and just enjoy. You don't get that thought of, at any given moment, you can buy whatever you want. If you want, an apple or a banana or some grapes or a soda or whatever you want to buy at the store, you're just going to go get it right after work. You're just going to go get it during work. You're going to take a break and go get it at the nearest little convenience store, or whatever you're going to do. You're going to go to lunch to many different places. But the minute that you step outside of these walls into a combat zone, all that goes away. Your only friend is your battle buddy. Your only family is your battle buddy. Your only meal is the MRE. And now you're stuck in the realm of the military, which is ultimately structured as a communistic type scenario, where you got to take orders and you got to carry them out to the best of your ability. And when you come back and you take the uniform off, you're going to be free again. But in the environment of what you got to do, you still got to conduct yourself in these duties and everything like that. And so to have that kind of freedom, and when you come back into it and you get to taste it, it tastes so much different. And there's so many people that are lined up to come into this country and taste that freedom. My guest is on. I'll have him here in a second. But to taste that freedom when you come back, and especially after being blown up, and come back and to taste that, super important. So I'll talk about that in a future time. But it's just one of those things that I just wanted to bring up. But hey, I got JB Stark on deck. Hopefully we'll have time for a story. JB, how you doing, brother?
Greetings and salutations. How do we say that? Yeah, cruel world. How are we doing, guys?
Good to see you. Hey, me and JB talk a lot. JB, hey, this is your story. If I get disconnected, this becomes your podcast. But if you get disconnected, I'll take over and we'll make some things done. Brian Colburn's in the back pushing some buttons from sitchradio.com, running my podcasts from there.
Hello, Brian. Thanks for letting me in.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian. Hey, so JB, let's get into your story, man. United States Marine Corps, U.S. Army National Guard, and transition. We're going to get into that too, but let's start back. Go back to growing up as a kid. Where'd you grow up, and why'd you join the Marine Corps? What was the inspiration between all that, and talk about that?
Wow. I was 9 years old during the summer of love, 1969. I was born in 60. I remember my mother and I watching Jack LaLanne, black and whites on TV, doing the exercises. Mom was a stay-at-home mom. I remember seeing JFK's Wonderful Dream, the speech about freedom in 1963. I grew up in a little oil field town on the west side of Bakersfield, California, Kern County, California, Taft, California. And during the 60s, there was a lot of influence in the families that there was a whole lot of veterans from World War I, World War II, Korea. And, by the time I was 9 years old, we were right in the middle of the Vietnam War. So most of my neighbors were veterans. Most of my dad was a Korean combat veteran. My mom's all my mom's brothers were Korea and Vietnam veterans. There was a woman I used to do work for. Her name was Mrs. Harris. Her son-in-law, he married Tony Harris, and this gentleman's name was Dargish, and he was a special forces tunnel rat in Vietnam and got himself tore up. Well, he became a mentor of mine when I was doing yard work for Mrs. Harris. I'd be groomed by Mr. Dargish, and the boy across the street with the Crown Over Market, he was a Vietnam veteran. The boy next door to the Harrises was a Vietnam veteran. I had all these guys grooming me. You know, when we were kids, you know, we'd play cowboys and Indians, and we'd play war. And when you got fresh combat vets coming back from Vietnam, and they're talking to you through their experiences, and you're a 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kid, and they're basically they're showing you how to be a soldier, you know. It really anchors you deep to when you become a man. These memories are super positive, and they're not telling you about the horrible shit about war, but they're preparing you. And then for me, it's really funny. For me, joining the Marine Corps, I went to the Army. Well, I'll be honest with you. The price of oil in the oil fields was dropping, and I had a daughter, and I had an oil field business, and I was going to have to sell my business. Everybody in the oil fields, we were losing our businesses. So I went to Bakersfield, and I saw the Army recruiter, and this guy wanted to put me in a combat arms contract. And he was I hate to say it, but Doc, he was a real asshole. And yeah. I didn't feel like he had my interest. I didn't know the recruiter game, but I kind of felt like this guy was just chasing quotas. That was kind of the feeling. That's kind of the feeling I was getting off his vibes. And there was a black master gunnery sergeant and a real young white sergeant that was a box kicker. He was a supply guy in the Marine Corps. These two guys were recruiters. And I was getting this weird vibe with the Army recruiter. And I started to leave the Army recruiter's office, and I didn't realize it, but there was a police session going on for all the new Marine recruits. And I'm going to get in my truck. I'm going to get in my truck to go back to my job. And this master gunnery sergeant's like, "Hey, come here, grunt shit." And I'm looking up, and I'm like, "Grunt shit? What the fuck's a grunt shit?" You know? And next thing I know, man, I'm signing on the line, and they're telling me, you know, that I've got all this college behind me, and I'm an oil field mechanic. You know, I'm building oil field equipment and race cars and race bikes for all the oil field sponsors. And they put me in the Marine Corps on a they called it a fast sergeant. It's a 24-month sergeant program. because of my college. Instead with my college, I could have went to OCS, but they fast tracked me to sergeant through the education and me building oil field equipment as an oil field engineer. So the next thing I know, I go through boot camp, and I'm high up. I bounce between. In boot camp, you get fired and hired left and right. 1 minute you're nobody and they're all over you. The next minute you're the guide, or you're first squad leader, second squad leader, third squad leader. And I did pretty good in boot camp. I went on to ITR, and I graduated ITR high. And when I got to Camp Johnson for automotive 3521 basic mechanic, they were doing all this time. They were doing all these special tests and background investigations. The next thing I know, I've got a confidential clearance, and it goes from confidential to secret before I even got out of school. And while I'm in school, they've got me going over, and this is at Camp Lejeune, Camp Johnson. So they're sending me over to Camp Lejeune, and while I'm going through my regular basic mechanic courses, they're sending me over to Camp Lejeune, and I'm going through this indoctrination, looking at Swift Company, Fast Company, second Recon, second Force Recon, second Anglico, second SEAL support, which the Camp Lejeune Marines would support the SEALs out of Little Creek, Virginia. And, I'm bouncing between school and these indoctrination. I'm going through all these indoctrination courses and stuff. And then I get my first assignment. I go to first Marine, not First Marine Division. I was working for First Marine Division, but I was out of First FSSG, First Forward Support Group. And then I had a detailer that if there was an infantry support, recon, force recon, Anglico, whatever, they'd run me to the unit. I do a quick indoct, and if they wanted me, they'd keep me. So I bounced between Camp Pendleton, Okinawa. I did a couple Westpacks. I did a pump over to the Persian Gulf. I did one tour on Okinawa unaccompanied, 88, 89, and then a couple Westpacks prior to that, and then Desert Storm, 89, 90, 91. So let's see, where are we at? Oh, I've got TBIs and PTSD, so I have memory loss and confusion daily. So if I get off track, you got to put me back on track. Where am I at?
Yeah. I'll keep you on track. So I mean, obviously, bouncing between all those things. Now you got a lot of other things too. There's a lot of things in between there. You got a brother that served. You got your camp penalty. You were in all these other things too. You got you got the rodeo, you got surfing, you got a whole bunch of things that you did on the side. A lot of extracurricular type activities.
As a kid growing up in the oil fields, there was a really cool hobby called free flight modeling. Model airplane. It's the American Modeling Society. And I was part of the free flight modelers out of California, and all of the regional, national, and international free flight championships were at Gardner Field, where the old bomber base, where they taught bomber pilots how to be bomber pilots at Gardner Field. Gardner Field became the free flight hobby site where we flew our airplanes. And I don't know, at the age of 7 years old through about 16, I had a World War II tail gunner, B-17 tail gunner, Russ Hyatt. He was my mentor, and he'd put me to work pulling weeds and cutting grass. And when I get so far into a project, he'd be like, "Okay, I'm going to buy you this model that you want, and it's going to fit this class, quarter A, half A, whatever. And then, oh, we need to get a engine timer. We need to get a 020 Cox motor, 049 Cox motor, so between my mom's contacts, getting me little projects, cutting grass, picking up cigarette butts, pulling weeds, I'd be able to pay for my model career. And I became a champion as a junior under the age of 18. So I did that. And my dad was involved with the 4-H, and my two younger brothers were deep in the 4-H with sheep projects and steers going to the county fairs. Me, on the other hand, my dad had me doing junior rodeos, riding bulls, bareback event, saddle bronc. I got my PRCA, professional cowboy, rookie card at the age of 16. That same year, my father was doing projects for contractors, where the contractors would put on these barbecues and hunting trips. And the next thing I know, my older brother and myself ended up going to the California Fish and Game, and it took 3 months for us to go through all these different programs and tests. My older brother, Reg, he was the one that went in the Army during Vietnam. And instead of going to Vietnam, he went to Germany instead of Vietnam at the end of the Vietnam War. I want to say 72, 73. So him and I ended up becoming big game guides in the state of California. And whenever my dad did these big game hunts for the contractors, we were the ones that picked out the trophies, and we'd get them into where they needed to be to get their shots. That kind of stuff, between the rodeo events making me tough and enduring pain, and the discipline with playing game guide, that basically lined me up for an easy shoe in to when I went to the Marines and started doing all the support jobs with the guys that, they were hiding and sliding and snooping and pooping. So, I was a shoe in. I went, I just went straight into that stuff like it was second nature. In high school, I was in Pop Warner football, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Field, track and field in high school, football. I was a
Yeah.
shop rat. I was a shop rat at hot rod shops and motorcycle Harley supplies during the 60s and 70s.
So a lot
That
of this carried over into your career, obviously, that
into
made
my
made
military career.
your military career,
Very,
and it made you very versatile to be able to just bounce around and be able to do almost anything. But you also were on the all Marine Corps boxing team, the all Marine Corps riding teams. So you got involved in some of these sports within the Marine Corps too, correct?
Let me get into that real quick. This was really cool. And that start with my sports in grade school and high school, it got me a foot in the door with all Marine sports programs. When I transitioned over the Army National Guard, because I was on the all Marine sports, I went into all Army sports. Because I was versatile, I started karate when I was nine years old. So when the Marine Corps, when I got into the Marine Corps, they were detransitioning the World War II Korea, Vietnam style combat judo. The Marines had the combat judo from World War II, Korea, Vietnam. When I went in the Corps, they were right at that dinosaur spot where they were just starting the McMap program, the Marine Corps martial art program. And because of all the different stuff I did and me working with special support, I ended up becoming, well, not only was I on the rifle teams, I was a rifle coach and a rifle instructor at the rifle ranges. I was a combat skills instructor. Now, this is what's interesting. The combat skills instructors were basically the predecessor to the McMap instructors for the Marine Corps martial arts instructors. Us as combat skills instructors, it was the same job. It was just a different name. We got that. Where are we going from here, Doc?
Well, see, yeah, this is where you so you how long were you in the Marine Corps? And then once you transitioned out of the Marine Corps, what was it that made that got you out of the Marine Corps? Why'd you get out, and why'd you end up,
okay,
what was it that got you going into the Army National Guard?
Okay. All right. This
and you got some combat in the Marine Corps time. That's where you got your combat action.
That's correct. I was awarded, I won the combat action ribbon while serving with 2nd Low Altitude Anti-Aircraft Defense, 2nd LAD out of Cherry Point. But we were attached to ACE Command, and ACE Command was support of 2nd Marine Infantry Division. So during Desert Shield, Desert Storm, that's another thing, Doc. You need to help me figure out how to get my records from St. Louis. I can't remember. I know they put me in for a Navy Achievement Medal with Valor because it was during wartime, and part of the stuff they put me in for the Navy Achievement Medal, it was during Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and I got the Navy Achievement Medal, and I can't remember if that was with a combat V or not. So when I do my thing with St. Louis, we'll find out when I get all of my records, I can figure out where my medals really are rather than what I think I got from my DD-214. I can't remember if it shows a V or not. We'll have to look at that. So I was running with the guys that shot down aircraft during Desert Storm. And then we're talking about the transition. This is a really sad part of the story. And this is part of what made me a disgruntled vet. You see in the movies and you hear Navy guys and you hear Marines say, embrace the suck. It's about getting the big green weenie. It's about not getting what you deserve, and you're really getting screwed. After Desert Storm, the Marine Corps did something that was just an astronomical boondoggle, and it was the drawdown, cutting troop numbers. And I was part of it. And the sad part, this is so sad. All these guys that supported special operations in the Marine Corps, all of us. I mean, I had a gunnery sergeant that went over to the Army National Guard, California. And at that time, I didn't know that I had full-blown PTSD. I didn't understand what the hell I was going through. I didn't understand, why I couldn't hold a civilian job after I left the Marine Corps. The drawdown, they went from 300,000 troops all the way down under 150,000 Marines in 2 years. 2 years. And for me, I picked up PFC, Lance Corporal meritoriously. And then I went to all kinds of sergeant meritorious boards, and I never picked up sergeant meritoriously, but I picked up sergeant at 24 months for the program that they put me in the Marine Corps on, the 24-month sergeant program, because I had all the college where I could have went to OCS instead of going enlisted. I went enlisted, but they ran me through that 24-month sergeant program. So I picked up meritorious prior to sergeant all the way up to corporal. And then I get sergeant on the 24-month contract. You're glitching in and out, Doc. I got sergeant on the 24-month contract that I originally joined the Marine Corps on. After Desert Storm, all the guys that were trying to get promoted, like me, I was in the Marine Corps. When I left the Marine Corps, I had 8 years, 9 months, and some days, almost 9 years active. And me, just like everybody else that was in the units that I was in, we were all forced out because we had time and grade to get promoted. I should have been a staff sergeant, but I didn't. There was no slot for me. So when they did the drawdowns, they've got all these combat vets. They've got all these high speed, highly technical trained guys that are really doing scary work. And yet they kick them all out of the Marine Corps. And you've got all these combat vets hitting the street. And if it wasn't for the Vietnam veterans pulling us under their wing with these unofficial kind of like, for us back in the day, we worked with PTSD on these coffee groups. You know, the Vietnam vets would be like, hey, we got this coffee shop down on the corner of whatever and whatever. Every Tuesday, every Thursday, y'all need to come. And the Vietnam vets are basically teaching us Desert Storm vets how to navigate the civilian world as killers. And I couldn't hold a job to save my ass. Every time I turned around, you know, I was getting fired because of my personality. What, you know, and here's the other deal. You got guys in the Navy, you got special guys in the Army, you know, you got PJs, and guys that support the escape and evasion program in the Air Force. And you got all these different crazy motherfuckers that hit the streets after getting out of the service, and they go to the civilian world, and the only jobs they can do, because they're adrenaline junkies, are dangerous jobs. And because of our personalities being so intense, even us working for these, you know, tree companies, you know, oil field jobs, steam job, you know, jobs with high hazard steam. We as combat vets, we gathered towards the dangerous jobs in the civilian world, but our personalities were so intense because of the adrenaline dumps and the nine emotions that flow when our adrenaline gets going. The employers couldn't handle us, and they'd fire us because our personalities were so intense and we did bizarre shit. And they'd always hire guys like me, because if there was a dangerous job, a sane guy, he'd tell you go fuck yourself. You know, excuse me. No, he'd tell you go screw yourself, because that ain't something a sane person would do. But yet, you know, all these civilian employers, they'd hire guys like us, and we do dangerous work that a regular civilian wouldn't dare try to do. And yet I kept bouncing in and out of jobs. And then now this is kind of funny. I kept having buddies that I was in support teams with from FSSG, working with all the different, you know, recon, force recon, Anglico, all the different infantry units. So all my buddies, I'd get these phone calls and be like, hey man, I'm at 1st SF. Hey, I'm at 75th Rangers. I'm here, I'm there. I'm at Triple Nickel Light Infantry. And as soon as I'd hear their voice, I'd be like, love to hear from you, brother, but you're not recruiting me. Fuck you. And I'd hang up. And Ron Vader called me up, and Ron's like, hey man, I already did a background on you. Don't hang up on me. You can't hold a job. You got to talk to me, JB. Now, for me, as a transition from dangerous work in the Marine Corps to trying to, you know, be a halfway sane dad, with a bunch of young kids growing up. And, you know, let's get into the deal with the Marine Corps. And you got Marines and sailors working, coexisting together. And then everybody on the base, all of the dependents, stay behind. Now I've got stories where I had a sergeant major that was a Vietnam veteran, and when he finally got to Desert Storm, he ended up barricading himself in the CISOC, the command center, and the Marines didn't respect him because whatever he did in the Marine Corps during Vietnam, the dude had no leadership in command. And yet we found out later that he was part of this key club where he was screwing all the wives. And Doc knows my wife was one of those key club members. And I was in denial, and I did. And here, let's get back to how our fathers and grandfathers prepare us to go in the service. You know, I had a grandfather tell me, you go where the work is, you do the work, you send the money home, you come home after the work, and you be the best father and best husband you can be. But yet, here I am being deployed 10 months out of the year for 9 years, almost 9 years. You know, I'm deployed to all these different units, and I'm not home. I'm not home 10 months out of the year. My wife is bored, and I'm in denial, and she's running amok. So when I got called for the National Guard, Ron was an intelligence officer, and he was also a retainment. He was a retainment officer for retaining troops in the National Guard, and he was a recruiter. So he did a background, and he's like, dude, you can't hold a job. And you're gonna work for me, and you're gonna do the same job you did in the Marine Corps, but for special operations in the Guard units. And here's where it gets, Doc, this is really cool. This is where it gets really weird, but really cool. I'm doing support and training missions and combat skills positions and, you know, range NCO, and I'm getting all these different jobs, and I'm working for reserve units in the Cal Guard. And what's really cool is they started putting me in supporting after 9/11, the Cal Guard, the whole Guard started ramping up anti-terrorism missions. And I got all kinds of paperwork from the Cal Guard, from these active duty units, where I would be part of the training program, prepping these guys, and 3 months or 6 months down the road, I'd look on the news and I'd go, why is it that that building looks like the building I built at Camp Roberts or Camp San Luis Obispo? You know, you see where I'm at? I didn't even realize that I was prepping live anti-terrorist teams to prep to go live missions. And I did a lot of that in the Cal Guard. Even though Ron would detail me and keep me in jobs. And when I didn't have an active, if I didn't have an active guard reserve, that's an active duty job slot. If I didn't have that, he put me in a school. I went through so many schools when I was in the guard, in between my active duty orders, which was really cool. I think I got off track a little bit. Where are we going here? Where are we going now?
No, you're doing great. This is your story, and this is kind of, it's kind of cool. But I guess I'm a little confused. When you got out of the Marine Corps, you went through all these different jobs, and then what was it that inspired you to get into? Obviously, your buddy called you up and said, "Hey, we want you to get into the Army National Guard," and that's how that started. Is that correct? That's how I understand that. And then let's get into.
He called me up. He called me up because all of my active duty Marine buddies that were in active duty Army assignments, Ron was concerned because he knew my head was all fucked up and I couldn't hold a civilian job. And all my buddies did the same thing they did in the Marines, just like me, support of special groups. So Ron did a background and he's like, this guy can't hold a civilian job. And Ron felt obligated to rehabilitate me and help me get my kids through school. And that's the other deal too, was Ron knew that my wife was a cheater and he'd try to educate me, but yet no matter how many people tried to help me with a cheater wife, because I'm always deployed and my wife is bored and she's got moral problems. And this is another part of my transition where my children were brainwashed. My kids did a lot of stuff against me because of the lies of the wife's silly games with her moral problems. I'm still battling the game with what I did for my service between the Marine Corps and the Army, and my wife's effects of me being deployed. What she chose to do, I ultimately lost a daughter to drugs and alcohol. You know that Monica passed away, I want to say April of 2024. Well, she was addicted to alcohol and cocaine, crystal meth, and crack since she was 11 years old. All of this was the effects of unsupervised kids. And then you've got my wife and my oldest sister manipulating my children with lies. And then let's put a twist on this. For me, having high clearances in the service, and like the units I was in, they'd give me an FPO on the West Coast, and yet my real FPO was on the East Coast. And my family didn't even know where I was at. And then now I've got brothers. I've got brothers that Democrat type mentality people didn't believe in the military. Now I've got brothers where I have to lie to my family about my real job, and I can't talk about my job. I can't talk about where I'm at, and I'm never home. So now I've got my oldest brother, my youngest brother, my younger brother, they're all involved with this crazy game with my oldest sister and my wife that's been immoral as a wife. And it's like they're all anti-military. And yet I've got my ass on the line deployed. And my family doesn't even know the real truth. And when I try to tell them what I really did, you know, I got brothers telling me, you know, oh, you're just a box kicker, you're nobody, you're just in the rear with the gear, blah, blah, blah. And that's the information they've got, but it's not the truth. And that really messed with my head. You know,
Definitely.
lies that are still.
And when we talk about, you know, PTSD and the effects, and we're going to get into that as well. You know, I know we want to get your story this time, but we definitely want to get you back on to talk about the chaos that exists within the PTSD bubble. And there's so much to unravel with your story with that, because you know, when we talk about how estranged your family is, your brothers, and how they treated you, and just so many other things that go involved with that. Yeah, definitely. But feel free to talk about however you want to with this. But
right.
You know, we want to get into your transition as well. But I do want to come back with this because there's a whole bunch of chaos, and JB is a awesome speaker on behalf of chaos and PTSD and the support for himself as well as others. So I'm going to have him back for that too. And it's going to take us a while to unravel that whole piece, JB, for sure. So I look forward to that. So if you want to, however you want to go and talk about that, feel free. And then talk about how, not only that, your transition out of the Army that's still in process. We'll talk about that.
Oh my God! Let's talk.
I mean,
let's talk.
We could get into however you want to go with this. I'm with you, brother. Well, we got 9 more minutes.
Okay, let's talk about right now. Okay, we're 2026, and I was medically retired. I was medically retired from the California National Guard in 2004 on a medical retirement. And what's interesting is I had 2 car accidents while on active duty that basically crippled me up. But prior to those 2 car accidents, I was involved in a special operation that was the original border mission. I want to say 1998 to the 2002 area. The National Guard had never been called to active duty. They had never been called to active duty since Pancho Villa border missions 1916. So all of the Oregon, California, and Arizona, New Mexico National Guardsmen were called up for the original border mission 98 through like 2006, I think. I was on the original border mission in 98, and I was at the Port of San Ysidro at the entrance to Tijuana, Mexico. And I was on lane 21, and an international incident happened, and I was involved in it, and I ultimately blew my left knee out, crunched my low back and my mid back, and caused issues with the left rotator cuff and the right rotator cuff. Now, this is what's really messed up about how the Army Guard takes care of broken soldiers. For 4 years, I kept going up to Fort Lewis, never got any surgeries, never got any treatment to speak of. And yet when they found out that I had 17 years active duty and I broke that 17-year mark, they rushed me through a 2-week medical retirement where I couldn't prepare my case. The med board, my shoulders, my mid back, my low back, my neck, actually my neck was all messed up. I crushed my left hip. I blew my left knee out. All of this stuff, none of it went to my medical retirement. Now, here's where it's interesting. The Marine Corps, I had a bunch of injuries from the Marine Corps that were war related, service connected to war. So the Cal Guard, the med board, looks at chronic sinusitis, chronic bronchitis, and fibromyalgia from war. And the med board gives me 20% on 3 items, which you can't do that. And then I've got TBIs, so I have daily memory loss and confusion, and I'm really messed up, and I'm emotionally a wreck, and they're using my career to scare me, and they're telling me, if you don't take the 20% and you come back to the board and appeal it, you're going to get 0. They're telling us, and all of us, we're making little classes with these guardsmen.
Hey, JB, we got like 2 more minutes, and I just want to have you like kind of jump to whatever conclusion. And if people want to get a hold of you, all these good things, we want to talk about that real quick. So jump through it real quick, but we're going to come back to you at another time because I want to get into all the chaos of all the crazy stuff that's going on with that piece too. So go ahead.
Okay, so where do we want to go from here, Doc?
Just talk about, you're still in transition, and you got congressionals out, you got all kinds of things going. DFAS can't get your dates squared away compared to your retirement dates. That's all kind of messed up.
Yeah, I got 6 years. I got 6 years of back pay. I got 6 years of back pay, and DFAS is telling the California Guard, the National Guard says I left the Marine Corps in 87. I left the Marine Corps in 93. The Cal Guard says I joined the Guard in 87. I didn't join the Cal Guard until 1986 or 1996. So now I'm officially retired and I've got TRICARE for life, but I got 6 years of back pay at 17 years points, which is almost active duty points, which would be probably about 40%, 40% reserve pay on active duty. And I got 6 years back pay coming. And DFAS says, if you can't fix these dates, this guy's not officially retired. I've talked to my senators, my representatives, my congressmen, my governors in California, Texas, Arkansas, and Alabama.
It's all over the place. And I know we got it. We'll bring this back because there's so much to it. There's a lot to unravel, and JB's story is like a very crazy, unique story. But JB, if you still help me with a lot of things, you're on it with me a lot of times. You're doing a lot of stuff. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, they can definitely do it through me. If you want to give out any information, give out some information if they want to get a hold of you. And any last words real quick, feel free to do it. Go ahead, brother. Just when he's freezing up. Oh, go ahead. You froze up for a second. Try it
No,
again.
I had an unwanted scam call come in and it messed
All
everything
right.
up.
Yeah, go ahead. If somebody wants to get a hold of you.
So if anybody needs any research, trying to put their stuff together, for their service connection case, or they're struggling and they need a buddy to keep them focused and keep the depression down and keep the ideations to a tolerable level, I say you got to find a big brother that you can call on 24/7, 365. And Doc knows I've been doing that with a lot of vets for a lot of years. And the Vietnam vets saved my life. So all the young kids that are coming up through the ranks now, Doc passes a lot of guys to me, and I'm a mentor to keep them stabilized when they're in crisis. Actually, this house I bought, I was trying to do an overflow for crisis control for guys getting ready to go to residential treatment. But because of all my health problems, and I don't have support, I can't even get my own. God, 2.5 years, I haven't even seen a primary care doctor down here in Alabama. So I got a beautiful house and 4 bedrooms, and I can have all kinds of buddies coming to visit. If somebody's on a road trip across America, stop in Alabama and hang out with me. I got 3 extra bedrooms.
AJB, thanks a lot for being on the show, man. We will bring you back because there's so much to unravel and a great story and so many great things. It's great that you had the opportunity to talk about your story, and I definitely want you to be able to tell it some more. So until next time,
God bless you all. God bless you all. Just be yourself the best you can, and know that there's a higher power looking out for you, and don't give up. That all of that in a nutshell. That's pretty much what's going to keep us alive. That's the only message I can leave y'all with.
Well, thanks, brother. Hey, this is Combat Vet Vision. This is a place where, veterans really get to talk. And, I bring on these guys because these are the guys that I talk with any given day. This is not a job for me. This is my life on any given day. I reach out to these guys and we speak, we talk, we do stuff, and be involved with yourself, be involved with the organizations that are out there doing some incredible things. And you as an organization, if you want to be heard, if you want to be talked about, if you want to talk about you, hit me up. Let's get you on. Let's talk about it, because it's important to reflect that. And if you're legit, I definitely want to talk to you, because if you're actually providing some services to our veterans, those are the kind of things that the Veterans Transition Resource Center wants to be able to express, because those resources are definitely important, and all the organizations that I'm part of. So until next time, strength and honor. Out.
The only way, and we need nothing more. The only way, together forever, that's for sure.